Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey with our next guest. Hailing from the heart of the Midwest, born and raised to embrace the jungle of life. With unyielding commitment to the exploration of his own inner demons, our guest courageously delves into the depths of the jungle within. Navigating life's challenges with determination, using fear as his compass, and even drawing strength from his encounters with it. Guided by his intuitive understanding of the delicate balance of the masculine and feminine energies, he flows between both realms.
This is so good.
Leaning in to the full spectrum of his being, and with his work with men, empowering them to understand and tap into their own primal power in order for them to unlock their fullest potential. So, y'all, get ready for an adventure of a lifetime as we explore the untamed realms of nature and tap into the primal force that resides within all of us. But fear not, my friends, because we have our guide, Jungle Jay. Wow. So please join me in providing a warm welcome for Mr. Jay Azeltine.
That was good, man. This is what you're supposed to be doing, bro. That was the best podcast intro that I've ever seen live.
I appreciate
it.
That
was awesome, bro. Did you practice that?
So
you're in your shower just
an hour
going
before,
through.
yeah, I was just tapping in. And again, something out, real quick transparency, like this is episode, I think 8 now.
Cool.
I've used ChatGPT to help with the intro. I basically have, and it's saved chat. I'm like, here are the list of things that I want to dive into. And it gives me like a rough rule brick, or like, I guess, a base to work off of, and then I'll move it to how I want.
That's fantastic, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
That's a great start.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And as I was saying before this podcast, I'm really excited for this because intuitively, I already understood that we connected just on a spiritual level and on a soul level. And in my this brief data points, I say brief because I really want to trust my own inner knowing. I think that's something that I believe you believe and tap into. Really, I have the answers, I have the questions, and trust in that. But also make sure I have, like, as we talked a little bit, some research of understanding this person a little bit more.
Totally.
And that's the journey today, is to really dive into the inner depths of the mind, as I said, the jungle within, and a concept that I was recently on a mushroom trip on my birthday a few weeks ago. And I couldn't talk for most of the trip. It was like very strong. We were walking the Ladybird Trail, dude. It was insane. It was me and my buddy Yash. And the thing that came up for me was the first time I said any words, I said the war inside. And I kept saying it. And time would go by and I would say it in a different tone. And then it was like echoing in my fucking body, the war inside. And it was just like, now it's echoing in my fucking brain, the war inside. So the reason, like, I believe in this, like, this healing journey, because I believe inner peace, it allows us to have this world peace. I even spoke recently for our Murph Challenge, and I want to honor our soldiers. And bravery is huge, and we need our soldiers. But in an ideal world, we don't want to go to war. So if we can be brave and be courageous in our own and fight those own inner demons, then it's gonna bleed into the people around us. And I consider you as someone who's really tapped into that and done the work.
Thanks. Doing the work.
And we're gonna go down a journey today, as I said, but I always want to start with a couple questions because we're present right now, and I want to take a moment to look back to the past 6 months and then the next 6 months. So the first two questions is, in the past 6 months, what is something that you're just really proud of yourself for? And then the next 6 months, what are you most excited about? And then from there, we'll flow.
Man, I'm going to say a couple things. I'm going to go beyond your role, just one thing.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm incredibly proud of, I think it was 7 months ago, was completing my first Ironman, November 5th of 2022. And I started that journey because I was terrified of swimming. I didn't know how to swim a year ago. I was terrified of the water. I almost drowned when I was 16. So there was a lot of subconscious fear there. And last year was like just a year of conquering fear for me. In August of last year, I conquered my biggest fear of all time, which was public speaking. I delivered a keynote speech in front of 75 to 100 people. I don't remember the exact number. And then 3 months later was able to parlay that into this Ironman, which is a 140.6 mile race, beginning with a 2.5 mile swim in the ocean, which was just like a year ago at this time. Like, I couldn't even imagine myself doing that. I literally get goosebumps just saying that. I'm just like so proud of myself for doing that and living by that motto that fear is the compass. And so that's the first one. Going into this year, honestly, it's funny because I thought coming into this year, I've been in business. This is like my 8th year in business. I conquered so much fear last year between the keynote speech, between the Ironman. I thought coming into this year, things were just going to just roll and just be super smooth. Last year, 2021, I made some big business transitions. Last year, things went so well, came so easy for me in business. And then coming into this year, I was like, yeah, things are just going to be so smooth. Last 6 months have not been. Just like great learning lessons in business and personally. And so the last 6 months, I've just leaned into my personal work more than ever, which then, of course, as a solopreneur and the type of business and the coaching that I do, it's all one, personal work, business work. And so over the last 6 months, man, I've just leaned in more than ever before and done more work on myself than ever, which is, again, then translated over to the business work and just lived in the fire. Since December, really, it's just been living in the fire and just going one more and going the extra mile and continuing to lean in more and get more uncomfortable and live by my motto that fear is the compass. And I've just accepted that, hey, things aren't coming easy this year. Gratitude for that, gratitude for the growing pains. And now I'm like starting, and life works in seasons, right? Life is this, it's vibration, and vibration works as a wave. And if you're down, it's okay. Gratitude for that, because I know I'm going to come back up. And then when I'm up, okay, gratitude for this, but not holding on to it because I know it's going to.
This too shall pass.
And so now I'm like starting to come out of that ebb of the flow. I don't even know if that's the correct term, but now I'm like starting to see the light on the other side, and things are really breaking through. And all this work I've put in the last 6 months, I'm just like really starting to see pay off. I'm just like, yes, it feels good. It feels good. So I'm proud of that.
Let's go.
Yeah. Next 6 months, you want me to?
Yeah. Keep
Cool.
going.
Next 6 months, man, I'm really excited to continue to do this deeper work. I've been working really hands-on I hired, I'd say, like a spiritual mentor coach. He's been a good friend for years, and just ripped a lot of Band-Aids off of stuff I just was like maybe avoiding or not going fully into. And so continuing that work of just working on scarcity, working on fear. Grew up with some childhood trauma that imprinted a lot of fear on my subconscious mind. And so working through a lot of that and continuing to build in triathlon, which I'm sure we'll get into. I'm just like all in, fully obsessed with triathlon because of how it ties into the mind, body, spirit work and everything else I do. And so just continuing to develop myself, man. I'm just like on this tear right now and just like, yeah, bro, let's go. So that's what I'm fired up about.
Yeah, dude, fuck yeah, man. That excites me as someone who can relate to that energy. And I think I said something in my story yesterday. I played flag football for the first time. It was first time I did some sport in a while, and just the competition and the athletes that were out there, it felt so good. And I'm so empowered just for everyone in the world just to taste that. Just once,
Everyone
at least
needs
once.
competition, man.
Just taste it, because yes, there's an element of pushing it to be better. There's an element of community, but you don't know what you're made of until you go and you push yourself in those arenas, and be the man in the arena or be the woman in the arena. Yeah. And I think you even shared, I saw on a reel that you said even women need to tap into that energy as well.
Absolutely.
And something you mentioned, like the ebbs and flow, life is like this. It's a freaking roller coaster. And I think for a lot of people, obviously, as you get older, you get wiser. Ideally, we want to be able to bounce and have a better grace and appreciation for the downs and the lows, but also be able to bounce back faster when we are low,
right,
and be able to find a equilibrium no matter what state we're in.
Right.
And I imagine that has been a journey in itself for you as well. And I want to go back to, I think using fear as a compass is just, I love that. When I first heard that quote, I don't remember when it was, but it just like, it stuck me.
Have you read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
I know the book, but I have not.
That's where I got it from. He talks about resistance being the compass, and I think he maybe says fear is the compass. It's probably where you heard it.
Yeah, was that the origin for you?
Yeah. That book changed my life. I've read it probably 15 times. That was like part of my origin story was The War of Art. Not The Art of War, The War of Art.
Yeah, The War of Art. So if I look back, I look at myself, and I relate to the fact that there's a spiritual journey of understanding yourself more and doing this inner work, right? And using fear as a driver. For the longest time for myself is I wasn't answering that door when courage was calling to do this. My soul was talking to me, and over time, like that depression, all these negative thoughts started creeping in, negative feedback loops, negative habits, everything. And is one I finally accepted, just like to challenge myself for the first time and lean into that when things started to change. And I want to go, because there's always a moment in time. Maybe it's not a collection of one moment, it's a collection of many moments where finally we really embrace that. I would like to go to that origin story for you before we continue, of understanding when you really tapped into that and understood what it actually meant.
Yeah. For the first time, like you said, there's many moments, but the one that I'll share is in 2015. Up till that point, I had spent 4 or 5 years learning from a mentor. He was co-founder of this huge supplement company called Muscle Farm. I was really fortunate to meet this guy. He owned a gym near where I grew up in Ohio. At a young age, 17, I started getting introduced to personal development books, a lot of Napoleon Hill and just like old school personal development. I started to go on this journey. And so I worked at this supplement company while I was going to school full time. In 2015, dropped out of college. 4 months later, get laid off by this company because it was a publicly traded company. It was a shit show. We all get laid off. So then I go into real estate as a realtor because I thought I wanted to get into real estate investing. I do this for maybe 3 months and hate it. At that time, I'm 22 years old. Sold a couple houses because I sold my parents' house. It was a layup, sold someone else's, made some money, and was just hanging out, smoking weed and doing nothing. And was just like really depressed and was just like struggling to find my purpose and really what I wanted to do in this transition period of my life. I'm sitting at my parents' house and I'm reading The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. It was just this really divine moment of just light bulb going off. And I'm reading the book maybe for the second or third time at that point, and it hit different this time because of the season I was in my life. And the excerpt in the book said, if you were the last person on earth, would you still do it? And that just resonated so deeply for me because I applied that to my career in real estate. And of course, no one would be doing real estate if you're the last person on earth, but it's the larger point of, is this what you're truly passionate about? And for me, it was I quickly answered, no, this is not what I'm passionate about. Well, what am I passionate about? What would I still be doing if I was the last person on earth? I would be developing my mind. I would be developing my spirit. I'd be developing my body. Okay, how can I make that my living? How can I make that my whole life? My mentor had already been doing it. You know what I mean? When I met him, he had a pretty big Twitter following and grew that over the years. And then once he transitioned out of the supplement company, had created like an online fitness subscription-based website and was just crushing it. Long story short, it was all generated through his personal brand online. What's stopping me from doing that myself? I've already seen the blueprint. I can get exposure from this guy. And I'd already started to build a social media, but not consistently. And in that moment, I answered that question, and it was fear. The fear of being on camera was holding me back. I was terrified of people growing up. If I had to go up and deliver a speech in front of the class in high school, dude, full on panic attack. I can't even talk. You know what I mean? Like,
because that was me, bro.
Oh my God, bro. Literally room spinning, just sweating, just black out and somehow get through it. But it was probably just so embarrassing to watch even for the people. Yeah. And so that was what was holding me back, was even the fear of just like being on camera. And so I'm like, okay, how can I take action right now to push the needle forward? So literally I dropped the book. I get in the car. I drive to Best Buy. I get a tripod. My mom had an iPad at the house. Come back, set up the iPad with the tripod out in the yard. They have a pond. I have this big, massive whiteboard I put on the picnic table, and I start writing stuff on it about what I had learned up to that point because I'd been reading, doing a lot of personal development, training and whatnot. And so the first YouTube video I ever shot, which was that day, is still on my YouTube. It's so bad. It's 15 minutes of me just rambling.
What year was this?
2015 or 2016 is when I would have done it. And from that point forward, though, I posted on Instagram every single day for a year plus. Within 30 to 60 days, I decided to offer online fitness coaching because at that point I had been training since I was 16. I had a lot of experience, had been training with a lot of really high level people, knew enough to coach. And so made a post about offering fitness coaching, got my first client that night, and it was off to the races. And from that point forward, now almost 8 years later, obviously it's expanded, and I've continued to reiterate and evolve my coaching programs and what I offer from a business standpoint. But it all started in that moment, though, of recognizing this isn't my passion. What is my passion? It's this. What stopped me from doing that? How can we overcome that right now? Tripod, shoot, video, boom. Didn't look back.
I want to dissect this real quick. When I say I relate, like I have traumatic experiences in college where I literally had to walk out of the room because my whole body just locked the fuck up. And that stays with me. Even though I have rewritten that story and feel very confident to speak in front of people, that stays with me.
Oh, yeah.
And another thing is, I think someone asked you this question, I saw from a keynote that you did. They asked you, like, what are the practical steps to allow you to, like, use fear as a compass? And to me, when I think about answering that question, I always come back to scalability. Like, we can do whatever the fuck we want, but it makes it a lot easier to set the stage to use fear as a compass and challenge your fears if the stage is a little bit smaller.
Right.
And build some credibility, build some confidence, and let that momentum take you to new heights. And for you, it sounds, okay, we got YouTube, I got the setup, and that's easier because the audience is you can't see them.
Right.
It's easier for some people.
Totally.
Some people are challenged on camera, but for you, I'm assuming in that case, it was easier for you to commit
Way
to that
easier than getting on a
than
stage
committing
at that
to
point.
100 people as you.
Yeah, it
did
wasn't. It
recently.
was 8 years later when I finally stepped on stage and delivered a 30-minute keynote speech. It was a lot of podcasts. It was a lot of social media content, YouTube content. But even now, like when I shoot a video, it's like second guessing myself. I'm
For
like,
sure.
oh, I'm going to say something wrong. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
For
so
sure.
I still deal with it, but I don't let it stop me. I just go forward anyways.
For sure. Because, I mean, as you said, it's your passion, right? When you're fueled by your passions, why, like, you can't let other people's opinions and the comparison model of like not being able to show up and not being enough hold you back.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if we're getting even more deeper and philosophical, that's what's going to start chipping away from your soul. When you're not doing the things that aren't aligned with who you are and you can't showcase your powers and your skills. And I'm like, I believe that every single human being has a specific power. We can call it primal power to offer the world. And it seems like yours is, as from my understanding, is being a healer at some capacity. And your avenues of doing that is through ayahuasca, through working with men, through speaking. Is that, would you say that?
Yeah. I describe it as like having different tools to help people become happier, healthier, more fulfilled, reach their full potential, right? It's ayahuasca retreats being one of those. It's health and fitness coaching, which lots of tools fall within that. And then it's community. It's building community, creating community for people to come together and connect. Like I think that's one of my superpowers is connecting and being a bridge for people as well. Yeah.
But providing community for people is a healing practice in itself.
Yeah, totally.
Because people need that.
It all falls within
that
healing.
Support system, and it also it allows for a better foundation to be more courageous when you have people who can actually truly see you and support you on that journey. So if we were to dissect, scalability is what I come back to, and managing what you feel like you can manage in this very moment. And as we said, over time, you're going to feel more confident. What are some other areas within this journey of really leaning into understanding your true powers? Because I imagine that's also been a journey in itself of being that connector and really tapping into who you are. There's an element of what I like to call messy action of just moving. It may not be the right thing, right? But you need to lean into it and feel into that, because there's always this topic around find your purpose, find your passions. How do I find those things? And it really comes down to being really present with who you are, but that's another practice in itself. So what has been, as you said early on at a young age, you understood that you wanted to go down this route, but what has been the kind of that journey of self-discovery over time of really leaning in and discovering what your passions are? Like, what is your process of understanding your own thoughts and feelings within inside you?
Yeah, great question, and a lot of layers to it.
Of course.
I think I got really lucky early on. Like I was connected to my intuition for whatever reason at a young age. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but I was. And like at 16 years old, listening to a Joe Rogan podcast in 2010, Joe Rogan, Aubrey Marcus. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, heard Aubrey talk about ayahuasca for the first time ever. And I have goosebumps now because like I had this literally spiritual awakening moment where it felt like lightning like struck me, dude. And I just had this inner knowing, that this weird thing called ayahuasca that I've never heard of before. I'm a straight edge kid from small town in Ohio, one stoplight town, is going to play a massive role in your life. This doesn't make any sense, but okay, I put it in my back pocket. That same year was when I met that mentor that I mentioned. This kid I was running track with, his dad trained at this gym. He was a bodybuilder. He asked that summer if we wanted to come train with him at the gym. I go to this gym. The guy that owns this supplement company. I meet him. He's got a huge following on social media. I meet this guy and I'm like, intuition, like you got to build a relationship with this guy. So I started making sacrifices, start hanging out with him, spending time with him. Eventually he started to teach me what he knew, introduced me to different books. And so I got lucky, I'd say, but also was able to recognize those opportunities and run with them. And then as a result of those things happening, that kind of built the foundation for me because okay, I know ayahuasca is going to eventually play a role in my life. It didn't for many years. It was like 9 years later, and we could talk about that as well. But I had it in my back pocket that this thing in plant medicine in general is probably going to play a big role in my life. I had a lot of pain growing up, a lot of trauma, some trauma that really rippled out that motivated me to want to go down that path of healing. And then meeting this mentor and starting to spend a ton of time in the gym just naturally developed that passion for training and then for health. So then as time went on, it was just like natural. These are the paths for me. You know what I mean? It was just like so heart-based, so intuition-based. Like I never intended to host ayahuasca retreats. That wasn't something I consciously just created. I think a lot of people do these days, and I think there's a lot of people in it for the wrong reasons. For me, it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, cool. I'm going to go on my own journey first, and then I'm going to bring people once I'm ready to do that. But practical tools to answer your question beyond what I just shared there, At this point in my life, it's like spending time with yourself undistracted, I think is like the best thing that you can do to connect more with yourself, to connect more with your higher self, to connect more with God, your intuition, like all these different things you hear people talk about. And then clarity starts to come. But if you're constantly engaged in something all the time, in your phone and work and something at all times, it's hard to find clarity on what am I meant to be doing? Who am I? You know what I mean? What do I want to do? What do I feel called to do? And so I think for just like people listening, I think it's spending more time disconnected. It's the hardest thing to do. Spending time just in silence, just staring at the wall is probably the hardest. It's harder for me than going and running an Ironman.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's a really important habit to develop. And I'm still working on developing more.
Yeah. We're constantly getting pulled. There's so many dopamine fixes out there. And I know we had a conversation a while back around this exact topic of really obviously embracing presence and understanding how to do that within ourselves. There's multiple practices of different forms of meditation, whether it is actually sitting here and meditating, or it's going for a walk in nature, or it's leaving your phone behind, or it's just staring at a wall as the analogy or the description that you give. And I think, again, with that, there's also scalability. There's the bigger ones of, let me go do an ayahuasca journey, or let me go do a silent retreat. Let me go, I did a 30-day road trip last year and didn't work. And there's the bigger scale, but then how can you implement a smaller scale and system within your life to really tap into the flow of going into the masculine of work, needing to get shit done, and the feminine of just allowing flow and being present with yourself and meeting yourself with love. And I'm curious what your current, because again, there's this, when you're in a path of growth, there's just a constant evolution. So I keep harping on that as a message to get in people's brain is like, once you get on that path and it becomes a habit, you just continue to evolve.
I think it's important to let people know, just like you said, I wasn't always this way. People see me on stage and doing the things I'm doing now. I wasn't this way. I used to be, like we talked about, a fucking terrified little boy that was afraid of everything.
Exactly. So what does your day-to-day look like now? And what are some things that you didn't realize were more impactful for you now that 6 years ago, 5 years ago, you wouldn't even have thought of, that allow you to get more presence into your life and slow things down?
Yeah, so I'll just take you through a standard day. I wake up at 5 a.m. pretty much every single day, and the first thing I do is 10, 15, 20 minutes of breath work. I'm a huge fan of a guided breath work session. I love the Wim Hof app because it's easy, it's guided. I use a lot of stuff on YouTube by this guy named Ben Holt. Fantastic stuff. And I'll spend 10, 15, 20 minutes first thing because I wake up and usually still like there's some chaos going on. And it's like that reactive state right away. And there's some scarcity there and fear. And it's what's the first thing I can do to settle that down in my body and my mind. And it's breathing, just intentionally breathing in that calmness and abundance and positivity, and breathing out any of the lower vibrational energy. That's first thing I do. Then from there, it's getting my bone broth. So you already hit on. I get my bone broth in my body, healing my body from the inside out with food.
Man's got a free resource.
Yes, free ebook on bone broth. It's changed my life for the last 3 years. I've drinking it every day for the last 3 years, and it's made my skin healthier than ever, my joints, my gut. And so bone broth, and then it's mobility. So that's been, to answer your question, one of the biggest things I never really thought of and didn't really practice before was just a daily mobility practice. As a result of training for triathlons, I spend about an hour a day stretching and foam rolling. Something I never did in the past and never would have realized how powerful that is beyond just the physical, like for stress relief and for the mind and beyond just the physical body. It's incredibly impactful. Like I'm harping on that on social media all the time now. I really am pushing that message of even 10 to 20 minutes a day. Doesn't have to be an hour like me. Completely change your life. You'll feel so much more present in your body because your body's going to just be flowing more efficiently. And then it's into training. I'm a huge believer in doing hard things on a daily basis. And for me, that's oftentimes a number of different hard things, but physical training, I believe, is a great way to train the mind as well. And so I train currently 15, 16 hours a week. I'm pushing that up to 25, 30 by the end of the year because I want to be, one of the best triathletes in the world. And through that, I'm constantly training my mind. I'm training my spirit in addition to my body. I'm getting in the water. I still hate swimming. I'm still afraid of the water. Do that 4 or 5 times a week. So I'm either getting on the bike for a couple hours, I am running, or I'm swimming first thing in the morning after that flow. Or I'm hosting on Thursdays, I host a men's group here in Austin, which is another thing of fear, right? Being in front of the group, leading the group each week, like sharing a message still elicits fear. And so my mornings start with just leaning into discomfort, leaning into fear, physically, mentally, spiritually. And then from there, my momentum's built for the day. I'm vibing by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And then I get into my workflow, which work-wise, it's coaching, health and fitness coaching, mentorship for men, and hosting retreats and social media. Like those are the main things I do. They all derive off each other. So my day is spent on calls with clients or social media, creating content. And then I spend my evening with Leah. I try to shut things down. I'll spend 45 minutes in the evening, additional mobility, and then we'll shut it down. We'll watch something on TV and hang out with the pup. And that's a normal day for me, man. It's very structured. I benefit a lot from structure. Everyone's different, but for me, like I love having structure. I love to be asleep by 8:30 every night, awake at 5 a.m., into my training flow, into boom, boom. Very productive. I am always doing something for the most part, or I'm doing nothing intentionally.
I forget what they call it, like the obsessiveness and then the intentional, or train hard, recover hard.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment real quick because I'm having a moment over here of just hearing you sharing and just being able to relate to your story so much, from just growing up in a small town in Indiana, one light, from obviously now I am big on mobility and I harp on mobility. I think it's very important. I also do breath work in the morning. I also just started a men's group. So it's I love this
It's
shit.
like that
because,
Spider-Man meme.
Yeah. That's another reason why I think podcasts are powerful for creators, because it's an opportunity for us to connect when we live a busy world, when we're leaders. We're leaders trying to lead other people into the promised land at some level, you know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to take that moment to honor you and connect with you, and that was beautiful to hear you say that.
Likewise.
I think one thing when I'm hearing is when we get into this element of presence and we start understanding what our soul is craving, and we start leaning into those things, and we do it despite of fear, with courage, things start to move in the right direction. And I think if people can understand that, and another thing I want to honor about you is you do a good job of emphasizing that you're a human being. Mm-hmm. And I think a good thing to understand when you, especially to all creators out there, if you are listening, is to be able to relate with people at a human level. I think our society, since the dawn of man at some level, has created this elitist structure, this power structure, the status structure that makes people idolize celebrities and think that they are better than you when they are human beings and you can do the same thing that they're doing. So I appreciate that you do that, and I want to express to other creators to really lean into that as well, so other people can join you on this life. It's so freaking fun.
It's so fun.
And soaking up all of life's juices. But to circle back, and another thing I guess I want to connect with is, and you said this at the gym the other day, is you want to be the best triathlon athlete in the world. And I say that to myself, and I say it to other people, of being the best hybrid athlete in the world. And I want to go into what that means, because actually before we get there, I think it's important to understand when it comes to presence and structuring out your day, the way I break it down in understanding is emotional health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health. And finding ways of each one of those every single day to tap into that. Mental health, that is the training for me, and the physical health. That's why I say you get the best of both worlds. Emotional health, that's your relationship with your fiance and your other close relationship, and men, and being able to be vulnerable and express yourself. Spiritual health, that's your greater calling. That's talking to the man above at whatever that relationship looks like for you. And I think everyone to be really intentional of understanding how to dissect those and really lean into those. But I want to, so in regards to when you say I want to be the best, one of the best triathlon athletes in the world, what does that mean to your body and to your mind and your soul when you say something like that? Because you understand that the underlying context that some people might take, not that we're living in a world where we give a fuck about what people think, but there is a reality that there is without context, people can take that the wrong way.
Yeah, I want to share a couple of things on that. First off, it's super subjective, right?
100%.
Become one of the best triathletes in the world is a really subjective thing. For me, it's really about the journey to becoming one of the best triathletes in the world. Like when I say that, people that are in triathlon are like, this guy's fucking nuts. You know what I mean? Because I'm so far away from that right now. I'm only a year into the sport. But if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all the way. And I always wanted to be pro in something. In high school, I thought I was going to be track. And then I just dealt with a lot of limiting factors with shin splints and whatnot. And then I got really into powerlifting, strongman, and bodybuilding, and was well on my way to becoming pro and world class in those three, until my knee snapped in half in a freak accident in 2020. And then I found triathlon. And thank God all those things happened, because nothing has fired me up like triathlon does. And I fell into the perfect spot with it. My coach is one of the best coaches in the world. She was one of the top women triathletes in the world. She's still an active pro. In the team that she's built, there's 700, 800 athletes on this team. Right? Yeah, shout out to Natasha Vandermeer. She's awesome in NVDM coaching. Into the team we have here in Austin, there's athletes all over the world, but specifically here in Austin, we have multiple pros and world-class athletes that I get to train with every day and kind of see how far I need to go. And even those guys aren't top in the world. And so I fell into a perfect groove with this opportunity, because if I hadn't been involved in this and I was just getting into triathlon, the fire wouldn't be nearly as strong as it is. So it was like the perfect storm for that. And as soon as I got into it, I'm like, I want to be pro in this. You know what I mean? If I'm going to do it, I want to go all in. And then, of course, as I actually started to get into it and get into my first year of training, I was like, oh, I love this. This is everything. Like, this is so in line with everything I talk about with mind, body, spirit work. There's no reason for me not to go all in on this. And I always believe in myself, and I believe in my unique background of strength training. A lot of triathletes don't have that. I believe in the mental work that I've done, the spiritual work. And so again, it comes back to the journey for me. Who knows, will I become one of the best triathletes in the world? I certainly believe I can, but there's a lot of variables in play, staying healthy, and like, there's so many layers there. And so for me, it's all about the journey of trying to become one of the best triathletes in the world. And what is that? It's squeezing as much as I can out of every single day, mind, body, spirit, to get me to that point, getting better every single day, mentally, physically, spiritually. What are the little things I can do? I'm in my office strengthening my tips and strengthening my ankles and strengthening my feet, and like always doing something to move the needle forward closer to becoming one of the best triathletes in the world. And again, who knows? We'll see. And I'm 29 right now. I think I've got, realistically, I think I have 8 years to really try to get to that point of being, and how I would classify it as being able to go to a big race and be able to compete at that highest level and go and try to win a race. And then there's the world championships and Ironman specifically. So Ironman is like the NFL of football, right? It's a brand within triathlon being the sport. There's a world championship every year. Usually it's in Kona, Hawaii. They just started mixing it up recently, but being able to go to that race and like eventually, before I step out of my prime, go into that race day like I have a shot to go and compete with the best and see how it falls. And now, even then, dude, there's so many people at that top level. There's so many layers and variables that go into an Ironman. It's a 140-mile race. So many things can go right for you. So many things can go wrong. That's what I love about it. And it's totally. And so again, for me, it's all about the journey of working towards becoming one of the best triathletes in the world. And if I'm going to do something like that, and I'm going to invest, by next year, I'm going to be investing 40 hours a week between training and mobility and everything else. I love it. Like, I just love it so much. It fires me up so much. I've never found something I'm as passionate about as triathlon. And so then on the flip side, if some people take that the wrong way, I think it's important to not lose your humanness as you go down the spiritual path. Like, I don't want to be a monk that lives in a cave. Like, I think it's cool to have an ego. It's important to have that balance. But I think, especially like early on in the spiritual journey, for a lot of people, like, you almost demonize your ego and you're like, I got to get rid of this thing. It's so bad.
Taught, I feel like, early on.
Totally. Yeah. And so for me, it's the ego can be really good. And yeah, it does sound super egotistical to want to be the best triathlete in the world or one of the best triathletes in the world. But that's why we're humans. You know what I mean? I think we all chose to come here to get to live this human experience. And so I'm not trying to get so far enlightened that I completely removed from the human experience. 100%. It's all about balance for me and triathlon and competing, dude. Me and my teammates are out there pushing each other and talking shit, and I can't wait to be at that level, the top of the world, where I can go out there and really push people and talk shit in a fun way, in a competitive way, and get the best out of them, and they push me. And that's part of the human experience. I
want to add to that. I know that we are a collection of our thoughts. So for me, when I am saying I want to be the best in the world, that's what I'm saying to myself. When I'm like in the dirt and I'm struggling, I'm like, yo, you are the best freaking runner in the world. Yep. You are the best so-and-so in the world. You are the best speaker in the world. Because that conversation, no one else is living up here besides me. They shouldn't be, unless they're paying rent, and they ain't paying rent. And yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Completely connect. The journey is what makes us. Those processes, that work that we put into blood, sweat, and tears, trying to find that phrasing, is what builds us to who we are, so we can show up in other ways in our life. Right. And training always, that's why I love fitness, because it just trickles and correlates and transfers to how we show up in our business and our relationships. And I think it's very masculine to use the phrase "go all in." I also connect with that, and I have had my experiences of going through that, where I had my drunken alcohol days, and I couldn't have a relationship with alcohol. I had to go all in on being sober. There was no relationship that was ever going to be developed there. Sure, maybe now I could, but now I have zero desire to tap into that. Same thing with dating. I was in bad relationships, and I was like, I need to just not date for 6 years. Now I'm going on year 7. Let's go. Still holding out.
Wow.
I'm tapping back into that now. It's a fun journey.
Cool.
But I think what I really want to, and when we talk about healing too, there's therapy, right? Therapy is super important. And when people think therapy, they think something like this, talking to a therapist. But I think the most important therapy out there is the action, whether it is a training or training for a competition, whether it is opening up to a close friend, whether that is doing an ayahuasca journey. And before we go down the ayahuasca path, because it seems like you've been really all in on every single thing you did when it comes to training. How has that been a form of therapy for you to build a better relationship with yourself?
Yeah, man, the gym has taught me so many lessons. I've been training for 13 years now. I'm 29. I started at 16. And between coaching clients in the gym and training, probably damn near 10,000 hours, and just the life lessons that have been taught in the gym and the discipline that's been taught in the gym. And I think it's important, like it's not the only piece of developing self-love and your positive self-image, but I think it's an important piece. Obviously, there's people, and you look at bodybuilding, like people, go way too far in one direction and they, compensate by just developing their body, and they lack these other areas of therapy, if you will. And so I think it's important to distinguish that. But for me, it's been such a pillar in my life, somewhere I can go when I'm feeling down, or if I'm struggling with something, just going to the gym, man, and just being able to blow off steam. It has been everything for me. Like, it's been such an important tool. And I've met so many other like-minded people through that venue. And yeah, I've always been someone that's all in on what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do something if I'm not going to be completely all in on it.
Yeah. I want to make a connection that I just realized a few things that you've said. You said when you were young that you were lucky to have the intuition for you to really understand, to make more heart-centered decisions and understand how to lean into the things that were like calling to you. And then you said later that with training with triathlon and Natasha, it all was right place, right time, and it just felt right. And some can call that God. Some can call that serendipity, synchronicity, where things just happen because you are living in alignment with yourself. And yes, some people start that younger, some people start that older. But I want to share, I didn't grow up around religion. 3 days ago, dude, I was riding my bike and I felt God for the first time in my life. I started crying. And I share that because I have been feeling and living in alignment with myself and leaning into these different things. But I wasn't fully all in because I was pushing away this idea of God, that I didn't need God to be me, to be a good person, to be loving, to be kind. And I allowed the illusions that other people and the history of war and because of religion and fighting for religion influence my brain to not allow me to have this relationship with God in my own perception and develop my own relationship. And it's been freaking insane. I'm on day 3, so it's still foreign territory.
So cool though.
But even the idea of saying God is it's crazy to me. But the reason I share that, and I've noticed times in my life I just didn't connect it to God when I am just really, it's hard to really explain. I just say alignment because that's the word that we use, and it's what makes sense when I'm just like really, whether it's good or bad to someone else, it's good for me. I'm making a choice that is, again, alignment with my soul. And when you consistently do that and get out of your own way and stop sabotaging yourself, which is what I did in my past, then God, serendipity, luckiness starts to come into your life. And I think, as you mentioned at a young age, you were blessed. You were blessed to be able to lean into that earlier than some maybe other people. And I don't know, I wanted to share that because I wanted to make that connection, but do you resonate with that of like, where you can feel that energy when you're just really listening to yourself, that these things start falling in place? Yeah. And again, I know you shared the past 6 months, there's been challenges that have come up, and that's life, but even those past experiences of being able to connect back to God, I'm sure it helps you through those challenges.
Everything's divine too. And the challenging last 6 months was exactly what I needed to evolve as a person, as a business owner, as in many different areas of my life. So even in the moment, I'm like, man, this sucks. This is so challenging, but this is what I need. This is an answer to my prayers that I've had to like reach that next level. I use the example of blowing my knee out, man. When I blew my knee out in 2020, it was from the outside in, man, that sucks. It's very unfortunate for you. Your training career and your goals of deadlifting 700 pounds and all these things are over. But in my mind, it's the end is already secure of what I want. this had to happen to get me there. So thank you for that. And I'm going to take it on the chin, and it's a blessing. It really is. So everything's a blessing for me.
You can receive it as a blessing or a lesson, right?
Yeah. Everything's a blessing. And especially because I'm living in alignment, right? And that goes back to what you just said, and the point you just made is like, I've been on this path for a while, and I've been living in alignment for the most part. And it's a spectrum. I'm continually trying to lean in more into alignment and make decisions that align with where I want to go. But as a result of that, when you're living consciously and you're consciously creating your life and life by design, then you can trust that everything is working for you and building you towards what you want. And you can think about it as, here's the end destination of where you want to go. Here's where you're at now. There's a lasso connected to you that's pulling you there. So everything that happens between here, where you want to go, and here, it has to happen to get you there. And with that mindset, it's a superpower of gratitude for everything. I fucking snap my knee in half. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Exactly, man.
You know what I mean? It's getting me closer. What you said about God, though, resonated a lot too, because growing up, I was Christian, but we didn't really go to church a lot. We were just quote unquote Christian, and I never really read the Bible growing up either. But as I got older, 18, 19, 20, I started to like really resent religion and church and like just the word God and Jesus, like were like really just turned me off. I would just shut down, if someone was talking about Jesus or talking about God. And then for me, I wasn't like an atheist. I wasn't like anti necessarily, but it was just a different, I wasn't about it. And then when I went to the jungle the first time and drank ayahuasca, it was like, that was what really opened me up to religion again. It opened me up to God, and it opened me up to a connection with Jesus and these different spiritual teachers. And it's been a really awesome journey the last 3.5 years, of developing my own faith and developing my own connection with God. And it's an ever evolving relationship. People ask me about my faith, and I'm like, I'm figuring it out every day. And it's fun.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that experience created that outlet for you to develop that connection?
Inherently, it's a very spiritual experience, obviously, drinking ayahuasca, doing mushrooms, any of these plant medicines, but especially ayahuasca, because you're in a ceremonial setting, and there's these hymns that are being played and these songs, and in addition to this experience that you're having. Like when you drink ayahuasca, like it's truly like you're ingesting the spirit, and it's in you. And it's, for me, like I just have never felt the presence of God that closely. And the interactions that I've had in that space, and the things that I felt, and the unconditional love that I felt, and like God is love to me, and feeling that unconditional love, and just wow. And so and it was a gradual process, and it's still a gradual process of continuing to evolve that relationship. But yeah, ayahuasca and mushrooms as well, like a lot of these plant medicines were definitely what kind of opened me up. Bufo, I've only done once. Like they all have just added to that journey of getting closer to the divine.
I've only done mushrooms. Again, feeling when something calls for me, I will do it, and I stay open to those things.
You'll know.
Exactly. I'll know when it's the right time. But I found and I have a lot of conversations. If I was selling mushrooms, I'd be like the top salesperson in the world sometimes, I swear. I'd be selling mushrooms super hard to people. And because it's been so impactful for me, and I feel that connection, how it's really unlocked me and developed, really tap into my superpowers even more. But I did have my previous relationship with it was very party driven, because I was a partier, and that's when I was using it in those contexts. And I think a lot of people when we were younger, that is the context that we connect it to. We don't have this bigger connection to divine as we're finding now, and how it's helping so many other people with PTSD and all these other things, that they don't have that new relationship. And I think that makes a larger point that I want to make is be open to shattering belief systems based off what other society has deemed, or what your own previous experience, or whether you had a bad trip at a young age. I think actually the more you age, the better you can handle plant medicines, because the more your mind has more wisdom to be able to receive those messages. Versus when we're young, it's very hard to interpret, and we're not in the environment and the context and the people to allow us to really help us to integrate and understand what that means. So just stay open to things like plant medicine, because besides Jay and besides myself, like I know it's impacted so many lives, and it's been around for, can I say thousands of years? I don't really know the history.
Ayahuasca dates back over 10,000 years.
Yeah. And I think the powerful one, and the reason my connection changed, is when I did it on my 30-day road trip, and I was in like these state parks and nature where the world was just pure. Man has not, talk about untamed realms of nature, like man has just not tamed these areas of the world. And I think that beauty really allowed me to connect, and now I can say connect better with God in those places or environments, I should say.
Yeah, they're truly just of this earth, right? Especially mushrooms, ayahuasca, peyote, even the bufo alvarius, toad. They're literally just, you can go out in nature and utilize these tools. Obviously, there's things like LSD and other types of psychedelics, if you will, but the plant medicines especially are just like, they're so natural. Our bodies have the stuff in them to process it. And ayahuasca is a unique one because it has to be combined with the vine to be able to allow it to be orally digested. But essentially for me, like when I'm consuming these things, you're consuming wisdom of the earth. And with ayahuasca, you're consuming wisdom of the jungle and millions of years of knowledge from the jungle. And you're consuming this, and it's indescribable. Yeah. And I've had the honor of leading around 75 men through these retreats over and over again, getting to see case study after case study of how this has impacted people. It's so powerful. It's so powerful, man.
So I feel like you've had this conversation before. If I was someone who maybe has fear around having a bad trip or a bad experience, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, people will ask, that's like the most common question, is I'm afraid of having a hard time or a bad trip. I think that you can absolutely have a bad trip if the prerequisites aren't in order, right? So I can only speak specifically for my retreats, right? People ask me, where can I go do this stuff? I'm like, I can't recommend anywhere else. I can only talk about what I offer because of how intentional we are. And for example, if someone were to come to me and want to do an ayahuasca retreat, right? There's a whole step-by-step process of them ever getting to the point of even getting to that ceremony, beginning with just conversation through a text or through a DM, just getting a feel for them, getting a energy check. Why are you interested in this? What are your intentions? Okay, cool. If they pass that, let's schedule a Zoom call. Now we're spending an hour on a Zoom call, just getting to know each other, seeing what the energy feels like. And I've turned down many people that just weren't a good fit for it. Like for me, the integrity is the most important piece. I'd rather make way less money and turn people down and have a less than full retreat than have people there that aren't quite a good fit for it, because it's a very
heart-centered leader.
Very group experience. And so to prioritize the integrity of the group is really important for me. But once they make it through that, let's say hypothetically they're a good fit, they get locked into this retreat, then we do a whole prep process leading into the retreat. So they do 6 weeks of prep with me. We do Zoom calls where we're setting intention, starting to share, starting to get to know the other brothers that they're going to go through this experience with, developing and preparing mind, body, spirit as they go into this retreat. Now there's a whole medical input form that the people that serve the ayahuasca have, right? So medical history and medicine and all of this stuff, head trauma in the past, like all of these different points of reference to make sure that they're qualified to be able to do this. Then eventually they get to the point of sitting in ceremony, or this medicine specifically, ayahuasca is created, it's not all created equal. Just like mushrooms, there's a huge spectrum of where it was grown, how it was nurtured, how it was prepared, who's serving it, where are you at, who are you with, right? So we obviously ensure that only really great people and like-minded people are there. The people that serve this medicine are some of the best in the world. I was so blessed again and lucky to have met these people. They work with such high level of integrity. There's such a high vibration of love in the space. So by the time they eventually get to the temple, get the first cup of ayahuasca, hits their lips, they drink it, there's been so much put in place to ensure that they're going to be safe. Yeah. Now, all of that being said, and this is my spiel I tell people every time, that doesn't mean that you can't have a hard experience, right? We're not there to play with butterflies and look at rainbows the whole time. That's why I do Ironman, because I want it to be fucking hard. I want to go to the depths. I want to face some demons. I want to work through some stuff. And so with the actual experience, it can be completely different every single time. I've done now 20 plus ceremonies. They're all very unique. And even within the night, you drink multiple cups, the energy and the experience can change so many different times in different ways like that. But all that being said, you can have a really hard time, but that's where the trust comes in of no matter what I get is exactly what I need. I'm going to get exactly what I need through this experience. And ayahuasca has such a high level of intelligence, way beyond what our monkey minds can comprehend. And so you lay down your trust to that, and you don't surrender. Like a lot of people talk about surrendering to the medicine. We don't really use that word. We talk about just being present. When you surrender, you're just like laying down and letting it do whatever. You're working with it. You're actively working with it. It's called a works, right? It's not a, you're not being served. It's a works. You're working actively with this medicine, and it can be really challenging at times, but it can also be rainbows and butterflies too. But you've done the work, you've prepared. This is a safe space. The people serving this are incredibly qualified. No matter what you get is exactly what you needed. And by the morning time, for me, the most hard experiences I've had in the morning, it's the most rewarding, where you're just like, you finally come out of the journey and you're just like, oh, I feel like a sponge just squeezed dry, and you're just like, wow, I feel so light and so good. And so again, I can only vouch for what I do, but with all those things in place, you can be rest assured that you're going to get a really productive experience. May not be what you want, may not be easy, it may not be fun, but it might also be fun and easy as well. You just never know, but you're going to get what you need.
I trust. You said that a few times, but I want to say, just in the context of mushrooms, because that's what I can relate to. Just to simplify the process, your environment and the people, the environment, the intention, and the people that are around you. And ideally, you want someone around you who has gone through this experience before, who is really good at holding space, as like yourself can hold space. And again, scalability. Like when it comes to mushrooms, give your body something that's as a lesser dose that can feel what that feels
First
like.
time I did
first.
was 1 gram.
Yeah, 1 gram is a beautiful starting point. A lot of people go into the hero doses, which is what we did when we were 18. I just went straight to the 0 to 100. We were reckless, but I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm here, and it's a temporary thing, whether you're going through a bad trip anyways. But I'm also like, I'm curious even with ayahuasca and mushrooms, like I guess my assumption is the more that you have not done the inner work throughout your life, and the more you maybe have not faced these demons, and the more that you've let things build up, and the more that you try to control every little moment and not trust, that the tougher that experience becomes. And I'm sure I know that from mushrooms as well.
Oh, dude, that's been my experience. Yeah, most of my mushroom journeys. But that's what I needed.
Exactly.
Right? Like I needed to hyperly, so intimately experience how I was just trying to control everything in my life. And in reality, you're not controlling anything. And like in those experiences, in mushrooms, and whatever that is, it just like, it shows you everything in hyper, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it magnifies everything. It's a microcosm of life. Like everything you experience in those journeys is just a microcosm of life, and it shows you what's happening in your sober life. And everything you share there is really perfect for someone is looking to do mushrooms. Yeah, it's setting and intentions and preparing for it intentionally and making sure the space is good. Having someone there to watch and just hold space for you would be super helpful. But I think it's also important to accept responsibility for the risks of what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like with anything in life, everything in life comes with a certain level of risk. Like when I drove here today on the highway, I was accepting the risk that I could get into a wreck, and that's what I'm accepting.
But you were tied to connecting with your boy over here.
Exactly. And so when I go into a journey, I'm accepting whatever outcome is coming. I'm taking responsibility for that. And so just understanding that there's a risk involved in everything in life. And that's an important piece too. Like people ask me about coming on retreats. I'm like, look, like there's a risk involved in everything in life. For me, it's risk reward.
Yeah, in connecting with the outcome, that reward. Like same thing with cold plunges. I hate it every single time. It humbles me, but after I get out, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
I feel amazing.
Yeah. So good.
I think mushrooms for me is a beautiful experience. When I did that same journey, when we were walking the trail, I'm just appreciating every single moment. I'm seeing these flowers. I'm seeing the greenery. I'm seeing the people. I'm seeing, like we were walking by like the canoe. It doesn't matter. I was walking by and just seeing people living their life. And I'm just like, y'all doing it out there. It's so beautiful. You're living. And it was just like, it's just a moment of appreciation for everything. And I want to appreciate my life as much as possible and collect as many moments as possible. And if we're talking about slowing down earlier, mushrooms and being in plant medicine, it is going to ground you so freaking fast that you have no choice but to be super hyper present in the moment. So if you have a challenge with doing that with meditation, maybe this is another alternative to allow you to ground yourself.
They're accelerators, I believe. I believe that you can achieve a lot of the same stuff you do with plant medicine without it. It's not 100% necessary, but I do believe it's a powerful accelerator. You know what I mean? Like you can have experiences that would take you 20 years of intentionally meditating every day. And now that doesn't mean you should meditate too. I think that there's a guy coming on this upcoming retreat for me. I've got a lot of different types of guys that come on retreats, all really great people, of course, to qualify for it. But this guy coming on this retreat, he's done a lot of work on himself. He went to a 13-day meditation retreat last year. And I was just telling him, like, because of what you've already done and the preparation work that you've done, naturally you're going to be able to go even deeper with the medicine.
Way better, yeah.
And yeah, they believe that they're accelerators. They're not completely necessary, but they can help accelerate and speed up the process. And for me also too, like they can be fun. It doesn't always have to be like super serious and just healing. Like I also just enjoy exploring my consciousness and going 100%. Into these different realms and working with these things. Like, just fun as well. It's just 100%. Okay.
To go deeper into your levels of consciousness. to really understand how this thing ticks, because as we were put and we were born into this world and brought up into the society and system, we didn't know who we were, and we were built, especially in our world of tech, even more being distracted at an early age, not understanding our deeper levels of consciousness. Put in not being healthy with our parents and our grandparents and the type of food and the industrialization of the food, not allowing us to be even more disconnected with our consciousness. So that's why I also say I'm getting younger every day, because I'm learning new ways to get healthier, but also learning new ways to understand my consciousness so I can reduce stress and make better choices and things of that nature.
Yeah, same. I think the stress one's a big one for
Stress
aging.
huge.
It's learning how to, because I spent most of my life stressed, you know, like that was like that nervous system fear, just on edge all the time, like tight and tension. Just learning how to soften and just be more calm is one of the best ways to slow down the aging process.
100%. I would say the best training program is a stress management program. So when you do these retreats, is it all men?
Yeah, so I'm mixing it up now. I'm doing one in the U.S. per year, and then I do a couple.
That might be my entry point,
yeah,
Jay.
Yeah,
That might be my
it's not too far away from here. And so that one's going to be co-ed, but naturally, like my demographics, mostly men. So I'm doing the ones in the U.S. as a co-ed, but will naturally be predominantly men, but of course open to women as well. Yeah, and then in Costa Rica, they're specifically men. And then my fiance hosts one or two of those. She has historically hosted one or two for women. This upcoming one, I leave for Costa Rica this week. She has a retreat the same week. Separate houses, separate retreats. But then when we come together for a ceremony for the 2 nights in the Sweat Lodge, her group's there, my group's there.
Cool.
And so it's really cool because we're both leading our groups through that experience. And so it's a little bit of both. But again, my demographics, mostly men. And I think that there is, because like people are like, why is it only for men? Is there space for women in other spaces as well, just for women? And I think it's important for men and women to have access to those spaces and I saw you just created a male brotherhood specific meetup and group. And I think that there's power in that, and men just being around men for a period of time, and women just being around women, because if it's a bunch of men and then there's women involved too, like naturally, like we just change. Like men just change when there's women around. It's like we don't even know it either. It's like biological. We're all trying to compete and impress the ladies. But when it's just men, it just changes the dynamic. And also men are more willing to be vulnerable and open, I think, as well in that space. And there's not a lady to try to impress. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of power in that.
I agree. I think as a male, I am going to better connect with males and be able to lead males. And also, as you said, the container is just a lot more sacred when we're separated, because when we get together, that primal instinct and those things come out. When did you start working with men?
And I've been working with men when I started my business almost 8 years.
So you got right into it.
When I brought that first fitness coaching client on, it was just like, it's been a steady burn, steady kind of progression. But yeah, I had my first client, and it was like basic health and fitness coaching. And over the years has evolved, of course. I made my first trip to the jungle in 2019. And that was when I really started to work with plant medicine. And then naturally my coaching started to expand beyond just superficial fitness coaching and health coaching, and still a big component of it, but now it's much more of just like mentorship on a mind, body, spirit level. So for 8 years, I'd say. Yeah.
Was it 2019 or plant medicine when you started being more vulnerable, or did you practice that muscle earlier on?
Oh, it definitely expanded exponentially when I started to work with plant medicine. I had been on the personal development path for many years up until that point, but nothing like when you go to an ayahuasca retreat and you start opening up and developing that muscle, being vulnerable. And then when I met Leah, and then when Leah and I moved in together, naturally, like continuing to become more and more vulnerable, because that just wasn't something that came natural for me. Growing up, I just held everything in and just didn't share anything, even with the closest people in my life. And so Leah's always pushing me to be more vulnerable. And so I'm just learning and growing so much through that relationship. Thanks, man. And so it's really cool. It's exciting to continue to grow and evolve and work that muscle.
Yeah.
It's a muscle.
Yeah, it's absolutely a muscle. What do you feel is your mission when it comes to working with men? Because I think I've gotten a little bit more clear on what mine, and I want to develop more male leaders, men of action, men that are emotionally intelligent and aware of their emotions and can wear their emotions on their sleeve.
Yeah.
And that takes shapes in many different forms. I know you're doing movement-based stuff. I'm starting movement-based stuff. I have some other things in the works. Maybe we can collide on some of those things. But what do you feel is your mission, and why do you think it's so important?
It's very similar to what you just said. I think you worded it really well. I haven't really thought too much about it, about like how I would word what I do, but I think ultimately it's helping men become happier, healthier, more connected to themselves, their emotions, so that they can become leaders in their own life and lead their family, lead themselves first and lead their family and lead their community, and then bring those people together, bring those leaders in the making together so that they can help lead each other in this space and lead me, and as I lead them, and we're all pulling and pulling each other forward, and then they go into their communities and spread this light and growth. And so that's how it ripples out, and we have a massive impact on the world as a result of working with, let's say it's 100, 200 people, that ripples out into many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. So I think it boils down to helping men become happier and healthier at a very just general level. It's helping men become happier and healthier.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think the beauty that I am very blessed and grateful for, and the fact that we live in Austin, and the fact that I'm so close to men like yourself who are tapping into this and being leaders. And obviously you've had your mentor that are males, and I've had my mentors. And that's the journey of life, is we learn these things, we take initiative, and then we pass those things on. And so many people are not, one, open to receiving, especially men are very closed off. And we talked about ego, and that's the negative side of ego, of not allowing to receive things and be more in touch with our emotions and things of that nature, which allows this buildup over time to happen to where we talk about suicide. Like, suicide is only increasing. And it's because there's this level of loneliness and emptiness that's get built inside when you don't let it all out into the world, your beauty, because we all uniquely have beauty within us. And it's super cool to see within Austin. I know that, and I know you were about to move to Costa Rica, but now you stayed here. And I feel like the reason you stayed here is because there's this force happening right now. And I know I have conversations with different people, and whether it's family back home or just like conversations, there's negativity out there. There's still negative things happening, but I am not privy to those things. I focus on what my mission is and allow myself to be informed, sure, if I need to be, but allow myself to stay pure to be able to live out my mission. And me, similar to you, when I was 18, I was like, I'm not watching the news anymore. Like, why the fuck are people watching this stuff? It's so negative. And I'm curious, with your own journey, is like, how do you remain so strong and be and able to stand and be a leader? Because someone has to lead at some point. Like, you're taking initiative and people are following you, and then you're hoping that those people step into their powers and then lead other people. But someone has to be the leader in that case. How do you, in a world where people want to bring you down, and maybe, and as a creator and as a following on Twitter and Instagram, how do you allow that negativity not to hold you down, and injuries, all these different things that you've gone through? How do you allow it to always prosper and grow from it?
Yeah.
And allow it to be a blessing.
Totally. Yeah. You're armoring, like David Goggins talks about, you build body armor for your mind through the physical training, through all the other things that we've talked about today and beyond that. And so I think that it's the daily practices of strengthening the mind, strengthening the body, strengthening the spirit to be able to handle, because naturally things just come up in life. Like, it's inevitable. Adversity is just a part of life. And so the stronger that you can become, the more you can strengthen those areas, the more you'll be able to handle the adversity. But when it comes to the world and the news and stuff, like, for me, it's just like really auditing the input. I, of course, don't watch the news, and I very rarely scroll on social media anymore. And I don't look really ever at what's happening on social media, the explore pages. It's much more just creating and putting content out. And if I'm going to scroll, I'll go on. I'm a huge Ohio State fan. Like, I'll go on and read blogs about Ohio State football and stuff. Like, that's my kind of outlet of scrolling, if you will. It's because when I'm on social media and I scroll, I'll see something and it'll be super negative and it'll just bring me down. I'm like, oh man, this doesn't feel good. And so auditing that, and then on Twitter, I'm a big fan of blocking people. If someone responds something negative and I just know that their intention is to just try to bring me down, I'm like, I'll just block them. I'm not trying to create an echo system, but I just don't have any time and energy for that. Block and just auditing my environment. And I'm at a point now, and I have been for many years, where I only spend time with people on a daily basis that I want to spend time with. You know what I mean? The people I'm around are only people like this, like you and I. The conversations we're having are the conversations I'm fortunate enough to have all the time. And the clients that I work with and the people I bring to retreats are only people I want to hang out with. You know, like I was just bringing on a client that's like a hybrid kind of client. He's here in Austin. We're going to train together a couple of days a month, and then I'll coach him online. He basically come train and do my workouts with me twice a month.
Cool.
And I'm like, look, like I want to make sure you're someone I want to hang out with, because if we're going to train together twice a month, like, you got to be a cool person. It's not worth, no matter how much money it is, it's not worth that energy if it doesn't align and resonate with what I'm doing. And so I think it's really important to audit your environment, audit the input, and strengthen yourself, strengthen your mind, strengthen your body, strengthen your spirit to be able to handle when things do come your way and you got that body armor to bounce it off. But again, adversity fucking happens in life, and it's being willing to accept that and feel those feelings and emotions and not try to run away from the heavier stuff. And yeah.
And know that it's there for a reason. As you said, blessing. Audit. You know, it's something I said earlier with making choices that are good for you. A good choice for you may be bad for someone else. But the overarching, actually what's created is actually good for them. They may have the perception that it's bad for them. Oh, I got blocked by this person. But actually you're not enabling them from acting out in negativity and putting more negativity into the world. Because you taking action towards that specific individuals, it's not going to go anywhere. And it's just a waste of time and waste of energy. Yeah. And again, it's an act of also enabling, because that's what that person wants. And maybe that's what that person needed, was to get blocked so they can have perspective to not act like that anymore. That's just like, it's an example, but that applies over the board for all things in life. Is I think a lot of people struggle with really separating themselves from things that don't serve them. And I had experience of that too with different friends over time. And when I realized and separated that energy, or maybe it was the jobs, and let go, just like you did with real estate, you allowed expansion for so much more in your life. And there's so much fear around that too. But at the end of the day, this is your life. Life is precious. And if you can fill up as much good as possible and live as in alignment, as we said earlier, things are going to work out. And when it goes down, at least you know that you're still making the good choices for yourself. And you're a human, you're going to make bad choices, but that's part of life.
Yeah.
And I think just to always remember that. There's a couple last things we haven't dived into. You mentioned your knee injury, and talk about healing and becoming now the athlete that you are today. I've witnessed it. I've seen not a lot of your training, but I've seen you evolve over the past year, and especially developing that KOT squat. We might have to get a KOT squat after this just to show people what's good. Yeah, what does that process look like for someone who, because that's a dark tunnel. Like when you're just knocked on your ass like that and blow out a knee, there's just, that process is not fun. And I know we've already kind of on the route building the body armor and things of that nature, but when you're more from the lens of when you can't see the lights and you're that immediate reaction, how do you remind yourself that the light's still there?
Yeah. For me, it came back to having good people in your life and good people in your corner. I was at this entrepreneur event, boot camp, when I blew my knee out. I'm in the middle of the woods on a mountain in Idaho in the snow. Fucking so
I just
stupid.
saw that video for the first time this morning. That shit is wild.
Okay, yeah, so you've seen it. It happens. I fall to the ground. My kneecap's on the side of my leg. With a bent leg, I shove it back in, which inevitably shredded all the cartilage, which at the time I didn't think about. But as I'm laying there in the snow, I'm feeling like a victim initially. I'm like, man, I'm not even, the pain was unbearable, but it wasn't the pain that was hurting so much. It was the realization that this is a really serious injury and my training is derailed completely for a long time. So I was feeling like a victim and just why? This sucks. And my mentor, Julian, which is the coach I work with now and good friend still, he was able to come up to me and help me in that moment a couple minutes after the actual knee snapped, and he was able to help bring me to a place of gratitude and reminding me that everything happens for you, not to you. This is going to be a blessing. And so that just in the moment as I'm laying in the snow shifted my perspective completely. And then I'm getting carted out of the woods on a four-wheeler. I'm laying on the deer rack with my leg blown up, holding the guy driving it, and I'm just crying because of how emotional this experience is. And I'm looking into the sky and I'm literally saying out loud, thank you, thank you, thank you. But I wouldn't have been in that mindset if I didn't have that guy there. You know what I mean? So that could have changed the trajectory of this whole experience completely. But from that point forward, I never left gratitude. I was just throughout all the tough times, and it was so hard. It's been 3.5 years now, and it's still a work in progress. It wasn't just your standard tearing an ACL. It was literally one of the most traumatic things you could do to your knee. And so it's been such an up and down journey, but remaining grateful throughout the whole process because of that initial moment of having that mentor. And so I think it goes back to having good people in your corner in your life to help support you through those tough times and remind you. And then of course you can get into, with an injury specifically, into the strategic stuff of actually healing it and going beyond just the the standard physical therapy and Western medicine approach and getting more unorthodox, especially for a knee injury. And I've learned so much now about the knee over the last 3.5 years and how to really strengthen your knee. And that's been a blessing in itself. And now I can coach people on that. But it's all mostly mindset process, recovering from a serious injury. It's mostly mental, but
It's trauma, man.
yeah, it's having good people in your life to support you through that tough time.
Yeah, and challenge the status quo of what the protocol is too, because I know so many people, at least in our space, that have gone down a route outside of modern medicine and have come back stronger a lot quicker.
Totally.
And there's a slippery slope with that too, but I think understanding that there's so many options out there to better your current physical state, mental state, whatever state that you're in, there's always an option and route that you can go to find a light.
Yeah.
And to progress and be better and come back stronger. But to piggyback off that, it's the support system is crucial. Having what we have said, community, but having even more of the interpersonal connections with some like mentors and your fiance, Leah. And I imagine that in itself, as someone who is about to get into the dating world and craving my queen per se, is I imagine has been very, I would say, I guess, a lot easier to be more grounded with things in life when you know you have your woman with you.
Yeah.
And would you like to just share a little bit about that kind of journey in your guys' relationship? You guys have been together for how long?
Yeah, we are coming up on, I think, 4 years this summer.
And shout out Leah, fellow Hoosier. What's good?
Yeah, she's so awesome, man. She's great. We met in 2020. It was just like a completely, again, just like we both were living in Indianapolis at the time when we first met. We were in different stages of our life. I had just gone through a tough breakup. She was a very different person at the time we matched. We messaged each other for a week back and forth and just wasn't a good fit then. So like we unfollowed each other on social media and went our separate ways. She moved here to Austin, which I didn't know, in 2020, summer of 2020. And I was here a couple months after she had moved here, just visiting, was considering moving here, was on Bumble, matched this girl again. I'm like, man, she looks so familiar. How do I know this woman?
That's crazy.
Had her Instagram on her bio, go to DM her and realized, holy shit, we had been chatting earlier this year, 7 months ago. So I'm like, it's not going to work. It didn't work the first time, but I started messaging her and just getting things going again. Long story short, she had just really started down this personal development path. She had hired a trainer a couple of months prior, was really going down this physical personal development path and transformation, and was just this new person. So when we met this second time around, it was just like so perfect. We met up like a month and a half later, and then the rest was history, man. And through this journey now over the last 3 years, and we're getting married in January this upcoming year in Costa Rica, which we're really excited about to make it official. We've been engaged since last summer. Again, like just living with someone, it forces you to face your shadows so much because they just become a mirror for you. And so she's been such a mirror for me. I've been such a mirror for her. And communication's been the biggest piece of our relationship, which she's always been really good at, overly communicating, which has helped me come out of my shell. And so with that, I think a lot of relationships would be saved if they just worked on communicating more, having those hard conversations and sharing your needs, because a lot of people just don't talk and they become like resentful, and that energy just keeps bubbling up. And her and I are just so aligned on so many levels. Like now she's getting into bikini and just loves it. And she wants to become pro in that. And I'm doing my thing with triathlon. Yeah. And she's a fucking beast, dude. She can do almost 15 pull-ups in a row. Yeah. She's a stud.
That's more than I can do.
Yeah, she's an athlete. Me too, probably, dude. I don't even know how many I could do right now. And so our lives are so aligned. Like we wake up both at 5 a.m. and go do our training sessions. And we're both working towards these big goals and these dates on the calendar. She's got her shows. I've got my races. But we still make, of course, that time for each other. And we're both self-employed. And it's really great. We get to spend all of our time together. And we never get bored with each other. It never becomes too much. We do everything together. It's so awesome when you find your person. And I feel like we've found that. We're just like so meant to be together. So perfect, man.
And it's beautiful. And timing and place is so important. A lot of people don't understand. Like you could be someone from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's just as long as you're to piggyback off this again, aligning with your life and really listening to what the world is providing you, the path will cross, whether it's that same person or a completely different person. But if you're not receptive to listening and hearing those signs and leaning into that, then you will never know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And as you stated, like at that point in Indianapolis, you guys were not in the headspace to be together. And now fast forward, and now you're about to get married.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And I'm sure that during this past 6 months, as you alluded to in the very beginning, the challenges and that you face on a business level, like having Leah with you was probably super impactful for you to stay strong.
Totally. Yeah. Constant reminder and rock. And like when she's down and struggling with stuff, I can help pull her up and vice versa. It's one of us will shift into that mode, being able to pull each other up. And like right now we're both like riding big highs in our lives, and a lot of good things happen. And it's good too when you're working through stuff, but seasons of life and this constant flow. And so it's been the coolest thing ever. It really has been, man. We can't wait to have kids one day. We can't wait. We're going to wait.
Yeah.
So we're excited.
Hold on. Pump and break. We
when
can
the
wait.
When the time does come, it's going to be really cool, man. Yeah. We're just pumped about life. We're stoked on life.
I'm happy for you guys.
Thanks, bro.
I have one final question. But before I get into that, I just want to emphasize one thing that you just said, and the impact of really having the support system relationship, and what I know and what we highlighted in terms of suicide and loneliness being part of the most dangerous disease in the world. Mm-hmm. I've had my bouts of that. I'm sure you've experienced that throughout your life at some capacity. And it's very scary. It's very challenging. It's very hard. It's very lonely. And to what I have found, and the reason why this podcast is around relationships is the most important thing from my understanding. Relationship, as I said, with God, relationship with people, relationship with yourself, and really taking action and understanding what that means for you. But I believe in that process, whether it's God or whether it's a close loved one, find something to connect with, because then that will open, by you seeking that out first, that connection, you will find more people who are on that same path of finding that connection. Yeah. Just like with ayahuasca, right? It's like those men at that time that are coming to your retreat, they are seeking that connection. And now they're developing a brotherhood of going through this experience together. But it started with their own individual choice to lean into that. And now look at them, right? It's a beautiful, this like circle of life is what we can call it. That's cool. But my last question is, I want you to imagine, based off the context that we talked about today, imagine you have an intercom and you're talking to the world. And you really believe, again, as a healer, that world peace stems from that jungle, that you're tangling Tarzan from inside, right? And I want you to provide a message to the world of how to maybe untangle those vines from within and be able to swing and flow and go all in, but also flow and allow things to fall in place and trust that they will. And I know there's going to be a couple of the things we've already said, but I just want that one final message. Now that we've sat here, we've let things sit. What is that final message?
Yeah, I love what you talk about, the jungle within, and the battle is within. It's within ourselves, and if we all just commit to doing our own work, then the world naturally becomes a better place. Like you see so many people out there, these activists that they're projecting all their shit onto the world, but they're not actually doing any of the actual work on themselves. And the battle's within. Do hard things. Fear's the compass. The more you can lean into your deepest fears, the more you can live consistently stepping outside of your comfort zone, the easier life becomes, the more that the ball of yarn starts to unravel, the more at peace you become mentally, physically, spiritually, by constantly pushing those boundaries. And like you said, Bray, it starts small. What's one small thing you can do today, this week, to get out of your comfort zone and build on that and keep evolving and keep moving forward and continuing to make it a lifestyle. Like for me, Fear's the compass is my lifestyle. Do hard things is my lifestyle. Like I'm consistently living outside of my comfort zone, because as a result, I can tame that beast within. I can unwind that ball of yarn that's in there. And then naturally I'm a better person. I'm a happier person. I'm more kind to others. And so anytime you're triggered by something outside of you, just know that it's within you. Everything, life is a mirror, and every time you are triggered in traffic, at work, within your relationship, go inward and ask, why does this trigger me? And that's where the work is. That's really where the work is to continually go in and ask those questions. It's never outside of you. It's always inside of us.
Yes, sir. Amen. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, that is all we got for today. Thank you for going on this wonderful journey that we just went on. Stay blessed. Woo!